If you're running a successful business, every time you're going to think about investing, you will think about investing back into the business, right? If your business is not giving you 5x, 6x or 8x ROI, then of course business is not successful. And so as a successful business owner, your dilemma on a day-to-day basis always is that, well, I can 5x my money. Why would I not just invest into my business, right? Why would I need to do something else, right? So it's important to understand that while that ability of your business to multiply is definitely there, it's also quite dangerous to put, as you said, all your eggs in one basket. You're listening to Help Me Buy Property podcast powered by Investor Partner Group. We help improve lifestyles by building scalable and sustainable generational wealth and passive income streams. We do this via our ecosystem that is a one-stop shop to all property investment needs, from evidence-based, data-driven buyers agency, industry-renowned portfolio reviews and property strategies, property development with and for clients, tax, SMSF, business structures advisory, and cash flow real estate. Everything we do is to help people achieve financial independence and not just basic financial freedom by using property as a tool and as a medium. Presently, we've launched Australian Property Academy, where we are training and teaching buyers agents, property advisors, property strategic partners, and secrets to finding investor-grade properties to astute investors. Connect now to experience it yourself, or drop in a line below at info@helpmebuy.com.au to get more information. Be kind and happy investing. We help create sustainable and scalable property portfolios without sacrificing lifestyle. Today's topic is all about borrowing for business owners and why don't business owners invest in properties and the reasons they should invest in property. We're going to talk about different types of properties that the business owners, or different strategies that the business owners need to indulge into when they're investing into property. There is also part two, and I'll talk about the part two in the outro about the mistakes that the business owners make and the type of the properties that they buy. Before going into so much detail, let me introduce my co-host today, Miss Cheryl. How are you today, Miss?
Hello, I'm really well, Moss. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another thrilling episode of Help Me Buy Property. And this, obviously, this resonates a lot with yourself and I. We've got businesses, and we're also in, we've got our own property portfolios. But I guess we see a lot of business owners who spend so much time in their businesses, they almost forget that they should be looking at creating other sources of income, and why, looking at property, the sort of the options as to why it's a good investment vehicle 100%. To be able to help create that diversification, I guess. So maybe we touch really briefly on why, as business owners, it's important to look at other sources of income. And Moss, maybe I'll start with you and your thoughts there.
Typically, I admire, and I think you're 100% right when you talk about business owners and property investing. There is sort of a love-hate relationship there with business owners and property, because starting up the business in itself is courageous. You're putting yourself out there. Your risk appetite is massive. When you talk about business and the appeal to the business, it has a certain type of person who has their own, you need to have strong will. You need to get your act right. As an entrepreneur myself, running 7 businesses right now, there is so much courage that is required, right? So this hits right in the backyard for me as well. When you think about business owners and the challenges that they have in business, property is almost like another challenge, right? They're like, oh, this is me, this being distracted from what I'm trying to do in my business, right? So, yeah.
And exactly, because, as you say, business, it's not about just being really good at your skill. There's so many facets of it. There's the sales, there's the marketing, there's the cash flow, there's the team and everything. And you can see how it is easy for business owners to almost forget, like they're in a bubble. They're in a bubble of businessy, and they're almost sort of like, oh my goodness, and you're lucky most business owners pay themselves what they're really worth.
100%.
As well. So for much of the first few years of business, a lot of business owners don't even pay themselves. And then when they do, it's around, how much do I pay myself? Like, what's that going to impact? And I guess that's when it gets to a point where we get so engulfed in this world of our businesses, we forget that we actually need to consider diversifying and different sources of income, because the truth is, just like a job, a business can be almost like a job, because if that's your only source of income, it becomes quite a risky place to put all your eggs in a basket, because something happens to you and you won't
100%.
have that source of income. So looking at creating this various sources of income does just mean that you're not just tied to one area, even though you might have different products and so on and so forth. The business itself is one sort of main asset. So whether you invest in shares or crypto or property or whichever, I mean, we're talking about property here, so we're not going to talk about crypto or shares. So why property? Why do you feel it is such a good and sound asset to invest in?
Look, I mean, typically when you think about investing, be it property, be it something else, right? Every business typically has its ups and downs, right? And if you think about a business owner, naturally, they're taking significant amount of risk in their own business, running, whether it's a small business or a medium-sized business or a large business. Understand that the cash flows from the business can be very unpredictable, especially for a small business. And how do you convert that cash flow into real assets? Because one thing that COVID has taught us is that business can go down under any time, no matter how successful the business is. There are things that can impact your business overnight and get you out of the business, right? Especially with AI coming around, so much advancements happening. Some of these major businesses basically feel threatened as well. So as a business owner, how do you ensure that your wealth is protected and no, your business is not your only wealth? And so how do you use the cash flow from the business to create real assets? And unless you own real estate or unless you own the asset, there is no other way to typically protect your net wealth, right? You look at McDonald's typically, right? McDonald's is a pure example, right? Everyone thinks McDonald's is a food chain business, but they're in the real estate business, right? Basically, that's what they're doing. They own real estate and that's how they grow, right? So it's all about converting cash flows into real assets. And so how do you do that? And business owners are a perfect opportunity and a place for you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where, I think it's really important early on as a business owner. And we're talking about people that, that are starting up. If you've been in business for a long time as well, and review where you are at and make sure you sit down with your accountant. Your accountant needs to be your best friend and your finance broker needs to be your best friend as well. These are your A team. And if if you want to go into property and it's an area that you're unsure of, have your property advisor as well. Have your absolute A team. We've spoken about this before, like to be able to go, this is ultimately what I want to create, right? This is sort of, if it's your financial planner as well, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to be able to do. What are the strategies that will be able to help me get there? How can I structure my ownerships and my holding entities to be able to maximize my serviceability or whatever that might be, right? And
100%.
When I say speak to a great financial broker, it's not someone who's just looking for the cheapest interest rate. That is not necessarily your greatest financial broker. It's someone who understands, like, what are the, do you have to look at different types of loans? Is it a low loan? Is it some other types of loans that you need to be able to explore?
100%.
So it's then also buying the right type of properties that are going to be able to support you. Is it residential? Is it commercial? Is it sort of, industrial?
100%. Whatever
that might be. So there, in previous episodes, we've spoken about sort of few of these bits and pieces for you to consider. But I think importantly is, as a business owner, have a look to understand how you can leverage the power of property. And if that's the vehicle or other investments, then what do you need to do in your business and in your cash flow and in your structures? Because there's profitability and then there's the money that you actually pay yourself. Like, what does that need to be to allow you to do whatever you need to do?
Definitely.
So Mox, I'm going to head over to you to ask the question around, how do you, as a business owner, how do you maximize your ability to invest outside of business.
Don't get yourself taken on a ride by property spookers, so-called property investment advisors, or buyer's agents who are selling house and land packages or off-the-plan properties or apartments. Get yourself a copy of this book called The Millennial's Guide to Property Investing. This book is not just for millennials. The title suggests, but it's actually the most advanced way of investing in property. This book will relate to your clients, your colleagues, and other business owners. There are so many property spookers out there who have come out of the woodwork over the last 3 to 5 years. And there is so much misinformation out there that I had to write a book about all the F-ups that people can actually avoid in order to be super successful in the property investment journey. Some of these are really easy to identify, but they are so costly to fix once these mistakes are made. So it's a short book, it's easy to read, it has a lot of stories, it has a lot of examples, and it is a true guide for people who wants to do it themselves. My name is Moxin Reza. This is my story, and a lot of you will relate to parts of this story if you're not born in the riches and if you're trying to build a property portfolio that can last generations and help you improve your lifestyle along the way. So I give you a chance to come out there and have a read. Be kind, stay safe, keep smiling, keep investing, and please do check out the book. Typically, again, dialing it back a bit, as a business owner myself, your business provides the best ROI, right? So if you're running a successful business, every time you're going to think about investing, you would think about investing back into the business, right? If your business is not giving you 5x, 6x, or 8x ROI, then of course, your business is not successful. And so as a successful business owner, your dilemma on a day-to-day basis always is that, well, I can 5x my money. Why would I not just invest into my business, right? Why would I need to do something else, right? So it's important to understand that, while that ability of your business to multiply is definitely there, it's also quite dangerous to put, as you said, all your eggs in one basket. And so what you're not doing is you're not enabling your life to be self-sufficient outside the business. I'm a big believer of, scalable and sustainable property portfolios that creates generational wealth. And so, when you think about a lot of these small businesses, typically mom and dad businesses that people set up, they're also not set up in such a way that they can be run autonomously where, you don't need to be there. The whole idea around business income is all about saving taxes or paying no taxes, and how do you reduce your taxes? And so there are so many limitations around as a business owner as to, okay, I don't want to pay a lot of tax. I'm going to play in the gray and run a lot of my personal expenses through business. And look, a lot of business owners do that, whether you admit it or not. And
I didn't buy ice cream, I promise.
Yeah, those coffees and those crazy stuff that you're not supposed to do, but you still run some of these expenses through business. I'll give you a typical example. I know someone, and I'm not going to name names, who buys Kohl's gift cards every year worth like $20,000 or $30,000 worth of Kohl's gift cards on June 30th, making it look like these are gifts for employees and people and gift cards for clients. But hey, that's used for groceries, right? So there you go, another trip for the business owners, right? So, but ultimately, what I'm...
Well, I haven't thought of that. And everyone, all of a sudden, Kohl's shares have just gone sky high because everyone's buying.
Are now jumping in. It's like, yes. Why did I not think about this? But again, where I'm taking this, the conversation is, as a business owner, it's all about saving taxes and amplifying revenue, right? That's where the limitation lies. And so one of the reasons that the business owners should invest in property typically with the right mindset is to create that sense of security outside business, that sense of generational wealth outside business. And if you don't do that, then, the cash flow of the business can disappear. And then how do you go around providing for yourself if that business is not there to support, right? So create a machine on the side and treat property as a business on the side and use the cash flows from the business to create the machine on the side. It's a perfect sort of opportunity for you.
Yeah. So are we talking here about purely just the income that the business owner is taking home? Are we talking about the profit that the business has made?
I think both, right?
As well.
I think it's both, right? I think people naturally think that from a business owner's perspective, that it's always about the profit. It's the savings. It's, the director's money or the dividends. It's not just that. It's also the cash flow, right? I think the cash flow is the beautiful way to play in this game, right? Understand if you are running a business who is generating $1 million in revenue and floating revenue sits at around, say, $400,000-$500,000 in any given month, and you don't need that extra $500,000. And yes, it's not your profit, but it's excess cash flow that's sitting there. And it's going to be only realized at the end of the year. You can play this game, right? Div 7A allows you to loan this money outside of your business for the first 12 months. If you bring this money back within those 12 months, you don't have to pay any taxes. Hey, that's the perfect way to use this money to create wealth for yourself. Like freaking do the flipping, right? Renovation projects. It's a perfect opportunity. Bring this money out, do a quick reno, bring this money back in 12 months time, 100%.
Yes.
And like, if you think about this, I know a lot of business owners who would invest, who would take the money out and bring the money back on 28th of June. And then the money goes back out on the 1st or the 2nd of July, right? Because they don't want Div 7A to basically kick in. Div 7A basically says that, personal loans that are given out to people, those are the loans that basically they transfer into deemed dividends, if they're not brought back into the first 12 months. And so again, speak to your tax accountant, speak to your tax director, we're not providing tax advice here, but using the cash flow is a really, really important way when you're talking about as a business owner.
Yeah. And so there's the cash flow side of things. So that's looking at the cash flow, you mentioned a little bit about paying, not paying as much taxes. And as business owners, we tend to sort of go, I want to pay as little tax as possible. But that on the flip side as well, from a serviceability point of view, that's potentially going to impact you as well. What are some strategies that you've used or you've seen being used? And I'm asking, in terms of your experience, to be able to maximize that serviceability or ability to build portfolios. Definitely. Because as I said, a lot of business owners tend to actually not pay themselves actually what they're worth, but yet are still able to build portfolios outside. How do you keep that servicing and ability to purchase going?
Look, first and foremost is that you need to speak to a broker who is well versed in business owners. Okay, there is a mortgage broker who does all the loans, and then there are mortgage brokers who basically understands this world of ABN and companies and all of that. Okay, the bank's appetite in lend, and so bank understands that business owners don't pay taxes. They're not dumb, they're not stupid. They understand that business owners don't pay taxes, right? And so they want to find ways to pay or give servicing to the business owners without triggering these tax liabilities for them, right? Of course, business's best interest is to hide taxes or defer taxes or not pay taxes or distribute income in such a way that not all the income is basically leveraged towards a single person. And so the business allows you to do that. There is so many products out there where a mortgage broker can take you down the route of sole trader service loans, no doc loans, low doc loans. And we'll talk about a lot of these in our episode 2, but there are so many products out there that basically helps the business owners to go down and acquire properties in the right structures without paying a lot of taxes, right? But the important thing is this, and we have the taxes in literally around the corner. And this is, I think this would be like the parting gift for people if they really want to basically think about how does servicing works for their business. Whatever you declare this year basically becomes your servicing for next year, right? So a lot of people think about, I'm going to save tax, I'm going to do this. Well, it's part of your tax planning. So if you have in your strategy aim to grow your property portfolio next year, right? Then sit with your accountant and make sure that you have the mortgage broker there, you have your property advisor there, and you are crafting your accounting in such a way that it enables you to make those purchases next year. Don't be reactive around some of these things where you've shown zero taxes, you've shown $45,000 worth of income, and then you're going out to your mortgage broker saying, hey, by the way, I want to buy a $2 million warehouse, and the mortgage broker is like, what are you smoking, bro? You can't, right?
Wow.
I'm not a magician. Yeah, so a lot of people are very reactive, and then what's done is done. It's gone to the tax office. You've reported your income. That's it, right? You can't go back and change time. So these are the important lessons that as a business owner you need to understand. Your accountant should tell you this. Your mortgage broker should tell you this. Your property advisor should tell you some of these things up front And that enables you to make better decisions.
Yeah, and for those listening and that have only been paying yourself a really small amount and claiming that and wanting to build portfolios, don't necessarily feel disheartened about it. I think the first part of is just that self-awareness, and then putting in place a plan to be able to get where you need to be. Like I said, speak to the accountant, speak to the broker, speak to your advisor, right? There's always solutions to be able to get into that property space. And we're not going to necessarily go into what options there are to do that. I know there's development, there's, low money down deals that you can do as well. So it's not the be all and end all. Servicing is one of the options of being able to purchase property, but it's not the only thing. So I like to say the business owners that are there don't feel disheartened and feel like, oh my goodness, I've been paying myself $20,000. That's it. I can't buy anything. That's not necessarily true. It does mean let's have a look at maybe if you can increase that income
100%.
As well. So it's a real fine. It is a fine balance.
Again, it also comes down to when we're talking about products, and I know we're jumping the gun because you're going to cover some of this in the next episode. There are banks who would look at your BAS statements and give you servicing. There are banks who would look at your tax returns and give you servicing. There are banks who would give you loans based on accountant letters. There are banks who would give you loans based on projected revenue for your company, what they are going to do next year. So there is so many different options available that a lot of business owners don't even know. They meet the first Tom, Dick, and Harry who's called themselves a mortgage broker, and they think that, I need to disclose $150,000 or $200,000 worth of income to myself because that's the easy way out. You need to find a mortgage broker that can basically solve the difficult problems and understands the business owners typically, right? I want to give a shout out to Ed McNally. Does amazing work in this space as a business owner. Hey Ed, if you're listening to us, and Chris Raymond, I think both of them, they do amazing work. Again, Rob, Amol, there's heaps of them, Manesh, but some of them have actually come onto our podcast as well, but they do amazing work in the business owning space. And so definitely reach out to some of these people, and see as to what magic they can do. Where others have shut doors on you, you would see that the amount of opportunity that is available to you is just, you would not even comprehend to something.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a business owner, we're sort of in tune to going, what are the solutions? What are the solutions that I can find and unearth? What do I need to do to be able to get there? So it's important that you have some sort of vision of what you're trying to create. It doesn't mean that there is no options. It's, as business
100%.
owners, you're in tune to finding ways to make things happen. So,
and it's about being proactive as well, right? It's about asking the right questions. A lot of times as a business owner, I'll go to, and I was having that conversation with my mortgage broker today, and I said, hey, next year, we are going to buy 3 properties, 2 of these type of properties. I want to add 1 rooming house. I want to add 2 developments. And so I'm being very specific to him, right? I'm telling him exactly what I want from my property portfolio. And in return, I want him to tell me what he wants from my business, right?
Yeah.
He wants from me in relation to how my structure works and which properties happens where. And so I think those are the discussions that you need to have with the property advisor, mortgage broker, and accountant in the same room. And a lot of business owners don't do that.
Yeah, which is a great sort of segue into what are the types of properties then, assets, should business owners consider?
I think you should take the first one, Cheryl. I think this is right up your alley. Yeah.
Over to me. All right. So I think it also comes down to what sort of capacity do you have as the business owner? Are you a business owner who is actually a business owner who's created a business that allows it to work, predominantly on its own? You've got a team, a systems and everything that allows you to have time. And you can be a bit more hands-on with your property. So you might decide that you want to do some developments or renovations or whichever. However, if you're a business owner who is, you're fairly filled, your day's fairly filled with, but that you've got the cash and the capacity, but no time, then look at something that's a little bit more hands-off. So a lot of business owners do look at commercial property. And those that have self-managed super funds, you speak to your advisor before you do this, but we've seen this many times that under SMSF, they've purchased sort of like a warehouse or an office or whichever. The business owner actually works out of it. I think they sort of rent it out in some way from the SMSF. And so the SMSF owns it. So they actually own that commercial space, yet they're able to also rent a space and work out of it as well. So there's the commercial side of things. And it's also that commercial tends to have, you need to put more funds in. However, from a net return point of view, fairly sort of low touch from that aspect as well.
I think that's a very important point that you make, Cheryl. I think one of the things as a business owner, especially who are like what I call them, the residing business owners who are residing into these properties, be it SMSF, be it some other company that you're holding as a holding company. I think SMSF is a perfect tool because you can cap your risk at 15% or your tax at 15%, and you can play that game for as long as you want, right? Set up, multiple SMS or single SMSF with multiple families, and you all have $27,500 available in a year that you can pitch, and you can go back 5 years, and all of a sudden, if you have 5 people, that's $500,000 that you can pitch into SMSF, and that's a business expense as well. And then, so there's a lot of ways that you can typically use SMSF to your advantage. But as a business owner, it's also important to understand that when you're talking about property, one of the commercial property's biggest problem is tenancy. And so if you are the tenant to the property, you've taken that risk away typically, right? Yeah. It's such a simple, easiest way enter into the property space. And if you are owning that real estate, and if you are providing appreciation, like capital improvements to the place, brand new floors, a mezzanine floor, so you're adding those improvements, you're not only giving your business a better place to, say, for example, live, but you're also adding more value to the commercial property that's growing up in value as well. So 100%, I think if you are that scale of a business and you need those, warehouses, those offices and those fit outs, then it makes a lot more sense to basically start your journey from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for then the other business owners who probably don't want to go down that commercial path, one of the strategies we've spoken about, obviously, is your buy and hold type portfolio, where you've got to look at, we've talked about different types of assets you can purchase, whether it's dual occupancy, there's rooming houses, there's your traditional sort of house and land type thing. But look at whether, it's mainly cash flow that you're focused on, or predominantly that capital growth as well, mix of both. But that's fairly sort of low touch. But, if we go down the path of, if it's high cash flow that allows you to also diversify, then we've talked about rooming houses many times as well.
Definitely.
You don't need a lot of properties to be able to help generate that level.
So I think if you think about business owners, right, their problem typically is not cash flow, right? They want to use that cash flow to park onto these properties, right? So naturally from their perspective, it makes a lot more sense to focus more on the capital growth and, aim for those premium pockets so that, they can basically build generational wealth out of it. But having said that, finding the right balance is quite the key, right? So while you're thinking about, okay, I want generational wealth and I'm going to buy some premium real estate, a lot of business owners do fall prey to these default settings, right? Oh, I'm going to buy negatively geared properties because the cash flow is not a problem. Well, to your point, even though if it's not a problem, it's not a smart way to build a property portfolio.
Yes.
You should start off with something like this, but make sure that you're thinking about the business of property. You're thinking about you building a business out of property. And so cash flow is still important because the portfolio needs to run on its own. It needs to be sustainable on its own as well. And so how do you do that successfully? Co-living spaces plays a really big part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are the other types of property assets people can dive into?
As a business owner, look, I think the other thing that business owners always default to is, they'll always look in the backyard. And so people living in Melbourne would always buy in Melbourne, and people living in Sydney would always buy in Sydney. As I said, as a business owner, cash flow is never a problem. And so you're like, oh, if I want to buy just one property, might as well just go out and buy something that I can go visit and see. And because they're time poor, right? So naturally they find the first best thing and they just buy it and leave it there, and they're very reactive in nature, right? So keeping a wider lens of view and, making sure that you are doing stateless investing, stepping out of the comfort zone, reach out to the advisors, buy in Sydney, buy in Melbourne, but also look at Brisbane, look at Perth, look at Adelaide or look at other parts of the country, and you would be able to find really good deals in other parts of the state as well. One of the best thing that I've seen one of the business owner do is he loves land banking, and so he always goes out and does land banking, and he wanted to always do land banking in Melbourne. But Melbourne and Sydney, when you're buying acreage, super expensive, right?
Yeah.
But you do land banking in Perth or Adelaide, and you can buy a shit ton of land for such a small price, and that makes them really, really excited. But then it makes a lot more sense from their perspective because they've done really, really well at such a smaller price point, right? So it's all about finding the right balance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I think ultimately what we're encouraging business owners here is, again, it's like come out of your bubble.
Yes.
And really, really assess, are you sort of putting too many eggs in one basket? Are there other options for you to be able to diversify, create various streams of income? And if so, make sure you speak to your A team. This is a quick summary there. Speak to your A team. Really get clear as to what you're looking to create. I think that's an important part of going, well, is it the intention to just build generational wealth, that you just want something that's fairly low touch, low involvement? Or do you want to be more hands-on where you sort of go, my business does its own thing. I can spend more time in, putting development sites together or renovating or whichever.
100%.
But ultimately just be able to consider it's a good idea. Create more other streams of income, create, your buffer as well, because the business, as much as you have grown it to be your baby or businesses, anything can happen as well. And it's sort of your, what do you call it, your insurance policy as well.
100%. And look, that's a wrap up. No better ways to say this. And if you are a business owner, and if you have any comments, suggestions, or any questions, feel free to drop it into the comments below. Do tune in for our second episode where we talk all about the mistakes the business owners make when it comes to property investing and the type of borrowing tools that are available to business owners. Till then, stay safe, keep investing, keep smiling, be kind. This is Cheryl and Moss checking out. Adios.
Bye.